Good day, beautiful people. Today we will take a look at your cells present in the urine. Of course, again, your cells that are present in the urine sediment. Of course, so to evaluate the urine sediment, we will make use of the microscope to visualize the different sediments present in the urine. Have here your red blood cells. Your red blood cells are smooth, non-nucleated, biconcave disc-shaped sediment that is approximately or that is 7 micrometers in diameter. It is 7 micrometers in diameter. The normal value of your red cells is 0 to 2 per high power field. Please note, yes, we report your red cells. Okay, we report it in average number or numerical range per high power field. It is in numerical range per high power field and the normal value for your red blood cells is 0 to 2 per high power field. Okay? Greater than 3 red blood cells per high power field is considered abnormal. Okay, greater than 3 is considered abnormal. And please note, okay, going back to when we talk about your hematuria, microscopic hematuria accordingly is greater than. Okay, the value for microscopic hematuria is greater than 3 red blood cells per high power field. Anyway, please note that in a not fresh urine sample, erythrocytes may appear as faint colorless circles. Again, in a not fresh urine samples, red blood cells may appear as faint colorless circles, which is referred to as shadow cells. They become shadow cells because the hemoglobin may dissolve out accordingly. Again, in a not fresh urine samples, the erythrocytes may appear as faint colorless circles and they are otherwise called as shadow cells, probably because of the dissolving of the hemoglobin. Anyway, okay, in hypotonic urine, please note the concept of osmosis also applies in your red cells. If you try to remember, you did this one in biochemistry. You did, yes, there is this particular experiment in biochemistry wherein you, what they call this, you place a cell or you put a drop of red blood, I mean of you put a drop of blood in solutions in an isotonic solution, in a hypotonic solution, in a hypertonic solution, in varying degrees or varying concentrations of sodium chloride. If you try to remember that, I mean, if you remember that, okay, and still the concept of osmosis applies here that to maintain balance, water will move in or move out. So in the case of hypotonic urine, the urine or the solution is hypotonic or the solution has low concentrations outside of the cell. Okay, so what happens here if the solution outside the cell it has low concentrations? So to maintain balance, your water outside the cell will move going to the red blood cell to maintain balance. There should be an equal volume of solutes or equal volume of solvent inside and outside to maintain balance. But then, in hypotonic urine, there is an equal volume, an equal distribution of solutes. That is why solvents will move out. Anyway, in such cases, in hypotonic urine, the red blood cells are swollen. Okay, the red blood cells are swollen. Of course, water will move inside the cell, okay, to maintain balance, causing swelling or lysis. And in hypotonic urine or in dilute urine, the cells will rapidly swell and lyse, releasing the hemoglobin and leaving only empty cell membranes. And of course, you call them as your ghost cells or shadow cells accordingly. However, in a hypotonic urine, please note, sorry, in hypertonic urine, crenated red cells may appear, okay, or the red blood cells may be crenated, okay, but they may be crenated with what you call this, rough and crinkled edges accordingly. Okay, with rough and crinkled edges. And yes, okay, and so they may seem appear, they have some granules inside. The hypertonic urine may seem appear, or they may appear that they have granules inside, but it is not actually. It is actually due to the what you call this, it is actually due to the crenation or the crinkled edges of the red cell. Okay, please note that what you call this, uh, your red blood cells can be confused with yeast, with oil droplets, air bubbles, as well as calcium oxalate monohydrate. Please note that again, oil droplets and air bubbles, they exhibit greater variation in size, meaning, okay, not all. Okay, they have different sizes. They come in different sizes. Your oil droplets, they come in different sizes. There are smaller, there are larger droplets. Same with air bubbles. There are larger bubbles and then smaller air bubbles. Okay, these two, variations in size can you can easily distinguish a red cell from oil droplets and from air bubbles with just the size variation. And of course, they are highly refractile. Your oil droplets are highly refractile accordingly. Of course, your what you call this, your yeast. Okay, yeah. The yeast, they show budding. Most actually of your yeast present, yes, they show budding. Some yeast cells, they come in singles or they appear singly, but then they have a budding form. They show budding accordingly. Okay, and calcium oxalate monohydrate, somewhat, okay, they have colors. Anyway, please note that if identification is difficult, you may prepare two preparations. If identification is difficult, you may prepare two preparations. And for one preparation, you put a drop of acetic acid, and then for the other one, you examine it as is. Okay, and you compare. Please note that your red blood cells, they are lysed, okay, in acetic acid. Okay, acetic acid will lyse your red blood cells, while your yeast, they are resistant to lysing. Accordingly, they are resistant to lysing. Okay, that is for your red blood cells. According, you have your microscopic images of red blood cells. Please note that these are red cells, these are red cells, and you have crenated red cells. We have crenated red cells here, these are crenated red cells. Please note that they appear that they have granules inside. Again, they appear that they have granules inside, but then in reality, they do not have granules. It is just because of the crenation. Okay, it is just because of the crenation. Same with this one. Okay, they are crenated. Okay, crenated red cells. Okay, they are crenated red cells. The other cells, they are normal. Accordingly, they are normally appearing. Of course, you have your crenated and normally appearing red cells here. Of course, this is a normally appearing. You have, okay, biconcave disc is seen here. Okay, and yes, these ones, okay, they are crenated red cells. Please note that, please do not confuse your crenated red cells with WBCs. Okay, your WBCs, okay, they have granules inside. And usually, okay, the yes, the cells that are not grenade. Okay, again, your grenaded red cells, okay, they do not have granules inside. Okay, it is just because of the crenation that make them appear they have granules. In this example, okay, you have here a red cell. Okay, this is a red cell. This is a red cell. And this one actually is a crenated red cell. This one is a crenated red cell also. Crenated red cell. They appear as, they seem, look like a WBC, but no, they are crenated red cells. They seem that they have granules inside, but no, they are crenated red cells. Okay, this is a crenated red cell also. Take a look at the clinical significance of your red blood cells. Please note that when we talk about hematuria, back in the chemical examination of urine, we said that red blood cells may be added to the ultrafiltrate elsewhere from the glomerulus to the urethra. Again, red blood cells may be added to the ultrafiltrate elsewhere from the glomerulus to the urethra accordingly. So these are the disease correlations of red blood cells in the urine. In glomerulonephritis, okay, red blood cells may be seen in the urine. In lupus nephritis, in interstitial nephritis that is associated with drug reactions, calculus, okay, or renal lithiasis or renal stones, okay, of course, renal stones may cause an injury to the tubules, causing a release of causing bleeding, of course, tumors, acute infection, tuberculosis, infarction, renal vein thrombosis, trauma, including renal biopsy, will cause red blood cells in the urine. Hydronephrosis, polycystic kidney, and what they call this acute tubular necrosis and malignant nephrosclerosis. Accordingly, aside from that, lower urinary tract infections, acute and chronic UTI, calculus again, okay, tumors in the lower urinary tract disease, I mean in the lower urinary tract, hemorrhagic cystitis after cyclophosphamide therapy. What else? Acute appendicitis accordingly may cause red cells in the urine. Salpingitis. Salpingitis, that is an inflammation of, yeah, an inflammation of fallopian tubes. What else? Okay, acute febrile episodes accordingly. Okay, scurvy and tumors of the colon and renal pelvis. These are diseases associated, are I mean extrarenal diseases associated with the red cells in the urine. Also, toxic reactions to drugs like sulfonamides, reactions to salicylates, reactions to methenamine, and the anticoagulant therapy may also cause red cells in the urine. What else? Schistosomiasis. Okay, will cause red cells in the urine. Of course, the schistosoma hematobium will somewhat, it can lacerate the tubules. Okay, it can lacerate the tubules. So, okay, physiologic causes like strenuous exercise will also cause red cells in the urine. But then please note that increased numbers of erythrocytes that are found in the urine in conjunction with erythrocyte casts, bleeding may be assumed to be of renal origin. Please note in case of this one, when there is an increased numbers of erythrocytes found in the urine, and there is also erythrocyte casts, bleeding may be assumed to be of renal origin. What else? Okay, let's take a look at this dysmorphic red cells. Your dysmorphic red cells is a red blood cell that is, that has cellular protrusions or fragmentations. Okay, again, your dysmorphic red cells, these are red blood cells with cellular protrusions or fragmentations. And please note that this dysmorphic red cell, that is it strongly suggests renal glomerular bleeding. Please note that presence of dysmorphic red cells in the urine highly suggests or strongly suggests renal glomerular bleeding. By the way, in the laboratory, okay, in the laboratory, sometimes doctors may request for red cell morphology. Sometimes doctors will suggest red cell morphology. And yes, okay, you need to identify the morphology of the red cell if that is uh, normal or if that is dysmorphic somewhat. If the red cell, how much red cell present is dysmorphic, how much appears normal, something like that. Okay. Anyway, you have your G1 cell accordingly. Your G1 cell here is a cell that has a donut shape with one or more membrane blebs. Your G1 cell, okay, is a red blood cell that has a donut shape with one or more membrane blebs. According to studies, your G1 cell accordingly is is more specific than dysmorphic red cells in diagnosing glomerular hematuria or in diagnosing glomerular bleeding. Again, your G1 cell is a red cell that has a donut shape with one or more membrane blebs. And studies show that this G1 cell is more specific than dysmorphic red blood cells for diagnosing uh, glomerular bleeding accordingly. You have your WBCs or your white blood cells or your leukocytes or your past cells. Please note that the term pyuria and leukocyturia, these are terms that are utilized to denote an increased WBC in the urine. Okay? And same with red blood cell, your WBCs, they are reported in high power field. They are examined and reported in high power field. They are examined and reported in high power field. It is numerical range per high power field. Okay, the predominant WBC present in the urine is your polymorphonuclear leukocyte or your neutrophil. This is the predominant type of WBC in the urine. Please note that your neutrophils, they swell in hypotonic urine or they swell in dilute alkaline urine and the granules undergo Brownian movement. The granules undergo Brownian movement. Once that the neutrophil has lysed, the granules are exposed accordingly. The granules are exposed, and the granules are refractile. The refractility of the moving granules makes these cells sparkle or provides a sparkling appearance, giving the name glitter cells. Okay, they are termed as glitter cells because of the sparkling appearance accordingly. Please note that glitter cells, they stain poorly with supravital stains. They stain poorly with supravital stains and they show loss of nuclear segmentation. There is a loss of nuclear segmentation for these glitter cells accordingly. Please note that your glitter cells, they are associated with hypotonic urine. Okay, even though what they call this, they swell or they are swollen in hypotonic urine, they will still give a positive result for leukocyte reagent strip test. Even though they are swollen in hypotonic urine, still they will give a positive result for hypotonic. I mean, they will give a positive result for the leukocyte esterase testing. Okay, so yes, your LE leukocyte esterase is what they call this an important tool to confirm pyuria in case of dilute or hypotonic urine. However, if cellular degeneration has begun or if the neutrophil is degenerated, it may be difficult to distinguish from renal tubular cells. Okay? Because of the loss of nuclear detail, there will be a difficulty in distinguishing renal tubular epithelial cells and polymorphonuclear leukocyte or your neutrophil. Okay, yes, you can make use of crystal violet safranin to distinguish between the two. Okay, to distinguish between the two. And peroxidase cytochemical reactions is also useful in distinguishing neutrophils from tubular epithelial cells. Please note that when crystal violet safranin is utilized to stain a neutrophil, the nuclei may appear reddish red and the cytoplasm granules are violet. In crystal violet safranin stain, the nuclei of the neutrophil is reddish red, purple, or reddish purple, and the cytoplasmic granules are stained violet. Accordingly, they are stained violet accordingly. Anyway, please note that your neutrophils, if not tested right away, if your neutrophils, if they are not tested right away, 50% of neutrophils are lysed in hypotonic and alkaline urine 2 to 3 hours after, 2 to 3 hours of standing at room temperature. Again, 50% of your neutrophils are lysed in hypotonic and alkaline urine 2 to 3 hours, after 2 to 3 hours of standing at room temperature. That is why, okay, prompt examination is important, or if you cannot do examination, okay, you do preserve. You employ refrigeration accordingly. Okay, you employ refrigeration. Please note that your glitter cells, they are stained light blue, and your leukocytes, of course, they are pale pink or violet in crystal violet, safranin stain. Okay, as for the normal value, okay, as for the normal value, okay, 0 to 5 per high power field. The normal value of WBC is 0 to 5 per high power field. However, females have higher leukocytes. Accordingly, females have higher leukocytes. Okay, greater than 5 is significant, of course. And 30 cells per high power field, the 30 WBCs or past cells per high power field may indicate an infection. Okay, it may indicate an infection again. And gross pyuria, there is what you call as gross pyuria. It may be due to a rupture of renal abscess or urinary tract abscess. Gross pyuria may be due to rupture of renal abscess or urinary tract abscess. Please note what is the content of an abscess. An infiltrated leukocyte. Infiltrated leukocyte. And what is the color of an abscess? Okay, what is the color? Somewhat white to pale yellow, somewhat. Okay, that is for your gross pyuria accordingly. And of course, these are examples of what they call this WBCs in the urine. WBCs, of course, your red blood, your white blood cells, they are larger than they are larger than red cells, of course. Your pus cells, okay, your pus cells are larger than red cells. Okay, these are, of course, okay. Notice that the granules are prominent. The granules are prominent. Okay, the granules, and they have nuclei, of course. Your eosinophils. Please note that your eosinophils, they are not normally found in the urine. Okay, and how are you going to distinguish eosinophils from other leukocytes in the urine? You make use of staining. You can employ your Gemsa stain, Wright stain, or you can employ Papa Nicolau and Hansel stain. Accordingly, you can employ Papa Nicolau and Hansel stain. Of course, staining characteristics based on the reaction of the granules present in them accordingly. Okay? Your presence of greater than 1% eosinophils in the urine is associated with drug-induced interstitial nephritis. Okay, bilobed eosinophils may be noted in patients with tubulointerstitial disease, which again are associated with hypersensitivity to drugs like penicillin and its analog. Still, that is a drug-induced interstitial nephritis. Okay, in allergic interstitial nephritis, it is associated with eosinophiluria, many red blood cells, and some renal tubular epithelial cells. Again, in allergic interstitial nephritis, it will show red blood cells in the urine, eosinophils in the urine, as well as some renal tubular epithelial cells. Okay, presence of increased eosinophils in the urine is also seen in acute disorders of the genitourinary tract and also seen in some UTI and renal transplant rejections accordingly. Your mononuclears, you have here your histiocyte, lymphocytes, plasma cells, uh, or your lymphocytes, monocytes, and macrophage. Okay, they are present in small amount. They are present in small amount. Please note that greater than 30% mononuclears in the urine, greater than 30% mononuclears in the urine indicates chronic inflammation. Aside from that, an increased mononuclear in the urine indicates an inflammatory response or renal transplant rejection or renal transplant rejection. Okay? And please note that as for the clinical significance, of course, number one, infection. What is the purpose of your red blood cell? I mean, of WBCs? Again, they are there for defense. Your WBCs are there for defense. That is why they are associated with infection. They are associated with infection. Okay? Please note that if there is an increased number of leukocytes, principally your neutrophils in the urine, okay, it indicates presence of infection or inflammation in the urinary, okay, infection or inflammation in the genitourinary, okay. So, of course, the infection can either be bacterial or non-bacterial. And yes, can be centered on the renal parenchyma. Okay, please note pyelonephritis, that is an inflammation of the renal tubules, or okay, bacterial or non-bacterial infections may be in the renal tubules, or maybe in the urinary bladder, or maybe in the prostate, or maybe in the urethra, or maybe uh, in the glands of the penis. Okay, or maybe in the glands of the penis. Okay, bacterial infections. Okay, as for the clinical significance, um, pyuria is seen in bacterial infections. You have cystitis, pyelonephritis, prostatitis, and urethritis, as well as balanitis accordingly. Please note that in women, you have this what you call as your dysuria pyuria syndrome or your acute urethral syndrome. This urea pyuria syndrome, this is regularly associated with greater than 8 neutrophils per UL. Okay, in this urea pyuria syndrome, so it is associated with greater than 8 neutrophils per UL in a clean catch urine samples. And yes, in relation to your dysuria pyuria syndrome, you have your chlamydia trachomatis, you have staphylococci, and your coliforms. They are the causative agents. They are the causative agents accordingly. But then please note that the I mean appearance of neutrophil or appearance of WBCs or pus cells in the urine does not always mean a bacterial infection. Or again, appearance of WBCs or pus cells in the urine does not always mean presence of presence of infection in the GUT or in the genitourinary tract. Please note that uh, finding of leukocyte in the urine is not a reliable indicator of UTI. Okay, as opposed to the detection of bacteria by gram stain or culture on a fresh midstream specimen. So always it should be also accompanied, okay? It should be accompanied with pus cell. It should be pus cells in the urine should be correlated with pus cells in the urine should be correlated with bacteria in the urine also. Okay, here are non-bacterial infections, of course. Okay, you have glomerulonephritis, systemic lupus erythematosus, and interstitial nephritis. These diseases will cause what we call is presence of pus cells in the urine. Calculus disease at any level accordingly may give rise to increased numbers of urinary leukocytes. Bladder tumors will cause what we call is will cause pyuria also. And yes, urine leukocytes may be transiently increased during fevers and following strenuous exercise. So please note that presence of a WBC in the urine is not always caused by infection. It is not always caused by an infection. Again, in case of your mononuclears, okay, you have what are your mononuclears? You have your histiocytes, your lymphocytes, and your plasma cells. Okay, if greater than 30% or 30% or greater, okay, is present in the differential count, it indicates chronic inflammation. Pus cells in the urine. Okay, this is a pus cell. This is a pus cell. A pus cell. A pus cell. WBC. 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 This is a WBC. 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 Pus cell. Pus cell. Of course, you have bacteria. The rod shape. Okay, and this one is a red cell. Please note, this is a red cell. This one also is a red cell. This one is a red cell. Notice the granules inside. Notice the granules inside the cell. Okay, you have granules inside the cell. Yes, here's an image, microscopic image, showing you a lot of pus cells, a lot of WBCs, and some red cells. Of course, these are pus cells, pus cells. These are pus cells. These are pus cells. WBCs, WBCs. Okay, this one is a red cell. This one is a red cell. This one is a red cell. This 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 is a red cell, red cell, red cell. Okay. And in this image, you have red cells. Okay, you have red cells. These are red cells. These are red cells, red cells. These are red cells, 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 red cells. And then, of course, okay, please notice you have yeast in here. Okay, and so they show budding. Okay, you have yeast cells, yeast cells, yeast cells, yeast cells. And again, your yeast cells, they are resistant to acid lysine, are resistant to 2% acetic acid. Okay, these are yeast cells. This is a red cell. Please note this is a pus cell. This is a pus cell. This is also a pus cell. This one also is a pus cell. This is a pus cell also. This is a pus cell. This one is a pus cell also. This one. Okay? And the rest, body, yeast and red cells. And then you have your squamous or your epithelial cells. First on the list here is your squamous epithelial cells. Your squamous epithelial cells is the largest cell in the urine with an abundant, irregular cytoplasm and a prominent nuclei. They are present, or your squamous epithelial cells lines the distal one-third of the urethra. Accordingly, again, the distal one-third of the urethra is lined by squamous epithelial cells. And again, your squamous epithelial cells, they are large and flat, and they have an abundant cytoplasm with a small, round, centrally located nuclei. Okay, abundant cytoplasm and a small, round, centrally located nuclei. And accordingly, the nuclei has the same, is the same as the size of the red cell. The nuclei is the same as the size of your red cell accordingly. Okay, and yes, please note again that this is your largest cell in the urine sediment, and your squamous epithelial cells is the most frequently seen cell in the urine and is the least significant among your cells and also among your epithelial cells. Okay, uh, the margins of your squamous epithelial cells, okay, are often folded. Okay, they are often folded, and the epithelial cell, your squamous epithelial cells, when you stain them with a crystal violet safranin, the nuclei appear purple and the cytoplasm appear pink to violet. Okay, in a crystal violet safranin stain, okay, the nuclei of your SEC or your squamous epithelial cell, they appear purple and the cytoplasm is pink to violet. Okay, and please note that for your squamous epithelial cells, many of them are present in the female urine. Okay, or if many squamous epithelial cells are present in the urine of a female, it may be derived from the vagina or from the vulva. Accordingly, it may be derived from the vagina or from the vulva. Okay, again, your squamous epithelial cells, they are found in the linings of the vagina, female urethra, and lower portions of the urethra. And yes, as for clinical significance, blue cell. This is actually a squamous epithelial cell that is studded with Gardnerella vaginalis. Okay, and this clue cell again indicates vaginal infection by the bacteria Gardnerella vaginalis. Okay, again, your clue cell indicates an infection, a vaginal infection by the bacterium Gardnerella vaginalis. Again, this clue cell, they are squamous epithelial cells covered with Gardnerella coccobacilli. Okay, and to be considered as clue cell, the bacteria should cover most of the cell surface, or 70% of the cell surface should be covered by the bacteria to be called as clue cell. And yes, it should extend beyond the edges of the cell. Okay, it should extend beyond, okay, the bacteria should extend beyond the edges of the cell for it to be called as clue cell accordingly. Your transitional epithelial cells. Your transitional epithelial cells, okay, if your squamous epithelial cells are located at the lower portions of the urethra, let's go up, okay, to find your transitional epithelial cells. Okay, let's go up to your urinary tract. Okay, go up to your urinary tract. Your transitional epithelial cells, they line the urinary tract from the renal pelvis to the lower third of the urethra. Okay, they line the again your transitional epithelial cells. They line the urinary tract from the renal pelvis to the lower third of the urethra. And please note that they are smaller than your squamous epithelial cells. They are smaller than your squamous epithelial cells, and they range from 40 to 200 micrometers. They range from 40 to 200 micrometers, and they are round or pear-shaped with a round centrally located nuclei or polyhedral or sorry. Yes, your transitional epithelial cells are spherical or polyhedral or caudate with centrally located nucleus. Okay, occasional binucleate forms may also be seen. Okay, and one distinguishing characteristic is the endoectocytoplasmic rim. Your endoectocytoplasmic rim. Okay, please note that few urothelial cells or few transitional cells or urothelial cells seen indicates normal desquamation. It indicates normal desquamation. And significant numbers of transitional epithelial cells can be seen after catheterization. Okay, after catheterization, they can be singles or pairs or in syncytia or in clumps accordingly. But then, okay, this is in cases without in cases wherein there is no catheterization or in cases without instrumentation and large clumps of transitional epithelial cells are seen, okay, again, in cases of incidents wherein there is no instrumentation that is administered or no catheterization that is done and large clumps are seen, large clumps of transitional epithelial cells are seen, okay, further evaluation should be done to rule out transitional carcinoma. Okay, if clumps in small or yes, if small clumps are seen without catheterization, okay, you employ your cytospin and stain with pap smear or you stain with pap stain and evaluate for transitional cell carcinoma. Should be evaluated for transitional cell carcinoma accordingly. Okay, and an increase in transitional epithelial cells exhibiting an abnormal morphology may be indicative of malignancy or viral infection. An increase again of transitional epithelial cells exhibiting an abnormal morphology may be indicative of malignancy or viral infection. Renal tubular epithelial cells. Your renal tubular epithelial cells. Please note that your RTE, okay, your renal tubular epithelial cells, they are the most clinically significant epithelial cells. And yes, your RTE cells vary in size and shape depending on the area of the renal tubules from which they originate. Or again, the size and shape depends on the area of origin. Okay, depends on the area of origin. Please note that your PCT or your proximal convoluted tubule cells, they are larger than other renal tubular epithelial cells. Again, your PCT cells, okay, your proximal convoluted tubule epithelial cells or tubular epithelial cells are larger than other RTE cells and they tend to have a rectangular shape and are referred to as again as columnar or convoluted cells. Okay, columnar or convoluted cells. Your cells from your distal convoluted tubule, they are smaller than those from your proximal convoluted tubule. Okay, and yes, cells from the distal convoluted tubule are round or oval. They are round or oval and they can be mistaken for WBCs and spherical transitional epithelial cells. Again, your round to oval cells from DCT, they can be mistaken for WBCs and spherical transitional epithelial cells. And your renal tubular epithelial cells from the collecting ducts are cuboidal okay, and are never round accordingly. And yes, please note that the manner of reporting for this one is numerical range per high power field. Numerical range per high power field. And yes, greater than 2 renal tubular epithelial cells per high power field indicates tubular injury. Indicates tubular injury. Okay? Increased numbers of proximal and distal convoluted renal tubular epithelial cells and presence of renal epithelial cell casts are seen in acute tubular necrosis and with certain drug or heavy metal toxicities as well as renal graft rejection. Okay, increased numbers again of PCT and DCT renal epithelial cells and presence of renal epithelial cell cast. They are seen in cases of acute tubular necrosis and drug or heavy metal toxicities as well as renal graft rejection. Please note that small numbers of tubular cells may be seen in normal urine, which reflects the normal sloughing off of aging cells. Okay, again, small numbers of tubular cells may be seen in normal urine, again, which reflects the normal sloughing of aging cells. And yes, uh, in newborns, okay, in normal newborns, somewhat larger numbers of tubular cells are seen in the urine of normal newborns. Okay, somewhat larger numbers of tubular cells are seen in the urine of normal newborns according. Collecting duct epithelial cells, please note that they measure 12 to 20 micrometers in diameter and they are identified by their characteristic cuboidal or polygonal shape and large, usually slightly eccentric nucleus. Okay, increased numbers of collecting duct epithelial cells are found in cases of renal transplant rejection as well as acute tubular necrosis and other ischemic injuries to the kidneys. Malignant nephrosclerosis will also cause the appearance of greater numbers of collecting duct epithelial cells. Aside from that, acute glomerulonephritis will also cause the appearance of collecting duct epithelial cells. And please note what they call this ingestion of various drugs and chemicals may cause significant tubular desquamation. In cases of salicylate intoxication, collecting duct tubular cells are easily found in the urine after salicylate intoxication. So after salicylate intoxication, collecting duct tubular cells are seen in the urine. So in this image, you have a renal tubular epithelial cell, you have a squamous epithelial cell, you have a transitional epithelial cell accordingly, then you have a WBC, you have a pus cell here. Okay, you also have a pus. This one is a red blood cell. Okay, red cell. This one is a calcium oxalate crystal. This is a calcium oxalate crystal. Renal tubular epithelial cells, please note that they are capable of absorbing substances. Okay, they are capable of absorbing substances. And yes, your oval fat bodies, these are RTE or renal tubular epithelial cells that have absorbed lipoproteins with cholesterol and triglycerides that has leaked from or that have leaked from the glomeruli that have leaked from a damaged glomeruli. Okay? And please note that oval fat bodies, they constitute one form of lipiduria. Again, your oval fat bodies, they constitute one form of lipiduria. Okay? So your OFB, they are lipid-containing renal tubular epithelial cells. And yes, okay, a characteristic sign or characteristic finding for nephrotic syndrome. Okay, characteristic finding for nephrotic syndrome is presence of lipids and any forms, presence of lipids in the urine in any forms, and accompanied, yes, presence of marked proteinuria. These are characteristic findings of nephrotic syndrome. Anyway, okay, aside from oval fat bodies, lipid droplets, free fat lipid droplets, or free fat droplets are also seen in cases of lipiduria. Aside from free fat droplets, okay, lipids may also be seen inside histiocytes as ingested material. Okay, as an ingested material. Okay, so your oval fat bodies is seen in lipiduria that is associated with damage to the glomerulus that is caused by nephrotic. Yes, damage to the glomerulus caused by nephrotic syndrome. What else? Severe tubular necrosis, diabetes mellitus, and trauma accordingly. Trauma. Please note that positive identification of lipids in the urine is required before you report lipiduria. Okay, so what are the methods to identify a lipid in the urine? Okay, you can employ polarizing microscope. Okay, you can employ polarizing microscope. Okay, in this case, when free or incorporated droplets contain large amount of cholesterol, please note that again, when free or incorporated droplets, they contain large amounts of cholesterol, they will exhibit a Maltese cross formation under polarized line. Under a polarized line. Maltese cross formation indicates a positive result or a positive result for polarizing microscopy, a positive. Okay? Again, when free or incorporated droplets contain large amounts of cholesterol, they will exhibit a Maltese cross formation under polarizing microscopy. But then please note that there are other substances that will polarize light also, like starch and some crystal particles. Okay, that is why care should be taken not to be confused with such substances with starch and crystal particles. Sample that are contaminated with vaginal preparations and lubricants. Okay, and so we also produce free-floating fat droplets. Okay, but then, okay, only free-floating fat droplets are seen if contamination with vaginal preparations. But then, if real lipiduria, there should be oval fat bodies accompanied by accompanied by free-floating fat droplets. Aside from that, staining, lipid stains using oil red O and Sudan 3. When when the large or when your oval fat bodies, when your oval fat bodies contain large quantities of triglycerides, okay, lipid stains, again, like your oil red O and Sudan 3, can uh, can confirm, okay, can confirm if the oval fat body or it contains a lipid, or it can confirm if the free floating fat droplets contains a lipid. Okay? Of your bubble cell. Your bubble cell, accordingly, is a renal tubular epithelial cell with non-lipid filled vacuoles. And yes, your bubble cell is seen in acute tubular necrosis. Acute tubular necrosis. And yes, your bubble cell represents injured cells wherein the endoplasmic reticulum has dilated before death. Okay, the ER, the endoplasmic reticulum has dilated, causing a vacuole. Okay, that is for your bubble cell. Please note again that your renal tubular epithelial cells, they are capable of absorbing substances. That is why, okay, they can absorb heme pigments from, heme pigments from your myoglobin, sorry, heme pigments from your myoglobin, as well as from your hemoglobin. Okay, and yes, these pigments may be absorbed by the cells and is converted into hemosiderin. Okay, and so they are converted to hemosiderin. So you have renal tubular epithelial cells that may contain hemosiderin granules, or the hemosiderin granules can appear freely in the urine. Okay, they can be found in the urine sediment. Okay, of course, the cytoplasmic granules of renal tubular epithelial cells with the hemosiderin granules, they appear yellow-brown and will stain positive with Prussian blue. Okay, they will stain positive with Prussian blue. Yes, these hemosiderin granules can be incorporated also into casts accordingly. They can be incorporated into casts. What else? Melanin granules. Melanin granules, again, your renal tubular epithelial cells can absorb your melanin granules. Okay, and so however, they are seen in rare cases of melanuria. Okay, of course, okay, if the absorbed melanin pigment, okay, once desquamated, they will be excreted into the urine. Okay, as for what they call this, as for clinical significance of melanin granules present in a desquamated renal tubular epithelial cells. Okay, and so seen in cases of melanoma metastasis to the bladder. Melanoma metastasis to the bladder. And then bilirubin pigments in the urine. Please note that bilirubin colors all the elements of the sediment. Okay, bilirubin will give color or will stain all the elements of the urine sediments, including renal tubular epithelial cells and casts. But then please note that your urobilin does not color cells and casts. Your urobilin, okay, the oxidized form of, your urobilin, your urobilin, the oxidized form of urobilinogen, it will not give a color to your cells and casts. Your bilirubin only, it is the only pigment, okay, present in the urine. Please note bilirubin is abnormal. Okay, it will give color to all elements of the sediment. Okay, anyway, let's take a look. This one is an illustration of a squamous epithelial cell. This is a squamous epithelial cell. This is a transitional epithelial cell. Okay, this is a urothelial cell. Yes, this is a urothelial cell. Okay, and then you have red cells. These are red cells, red cells, red cells, red cells, red cells. Please note, as what we said earlier, that the nuclei of your squamous epithelial cell is the same in size with a red blood cell, with a red blood cell. Okay, this is a red cell, a red cell, red cell, red cell, red cell, red cell. Your bacteria or bacteriuria or presence of bacteria in the urine is indicative of lower or upper UTI. And most commonly, rod-shaped bacteria are seen because the enteric organisms are the causative agents in the majority of UTI. Please note, enteric organisms. Okay, enteric in your intestines accordingly. And the bacteria associated with UTI most frequently are Enterobacteriaceae. These are gram-negative rods. Aside from that, your Staphylococcus and Enterococcus are also capable of causing UTI. But then, of course, again, if you try to go back, the most common cause of UTI is E. coli. Okay? E. coli, aside from E. coli, you have your Klebsiella pneumoniae, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, and Proteus species. They can cause urinary tract infection also. Anyway, uh, observing bacteria for the motility also is useful to differentiate them from amorphous phosphates. Okay, observing bacteria for the motility, because of course, bacteria, they are moving, they are motile, they can move. Okay, observing their motility is useful in differentiating them from amorphous phosphates and urates, because yes, at times for a neophyte, bacteria can be how do you call this? Bacteria can be uh, mistaken with the amorphous phosphates and amorphous urates because again they have a similar appearance. And okay, observing the motility will help to differentiate among them. Anyway, you can make use of phase contrast microscopy to help you in the visualization of bacteria. Okay, to help you in the visualization of bacteria. Then easy naman, it's easy to distinguish your bacteria. Of course, this is a bacteria, this is a bacteria, this is a gram-negative or cocci, this is a bacilli. And please note that bacteria should be accompanied by a WBC. Through infection, okay, through infection should be accompanied by a WBC. Again, through infection should be accompanied by a WBC. And please note that presence of bacteria in the urine should be confirmed with a positive urine culture. It should be confirmed with a positive urine culture. But then please note that do not jump into conclusions right away because finding a bacteria in the urine may or may not be significant depending on the method of urine collection. Okay, it depends on the urine method of urine collection and it also depends on how soon after collection of the sample the examination has taken place. So, there are two things to consider. How did the patient collected the urine? Did the patient perform midstream clean catch? Did the patient perform, did the patient perform the collection in a sterile condition? Was he able to, what did he touch the insides of the container as such? And yes, how soon after collection? Is there a delay in testing? Okay, is there a delay in testing? Because a few bacteria are present as a result of contamination from the vagina, the urethra, and the external genitalia. Again, a few bacteria are present in the urine sample as a result of contamination from the vagina, from the urethra, from the urine container itself, and from the external genitalia. In this contaminating bacteria can multiply rapidly in samples that are not preserved, in samples that remain at room temperature for an extended time. And they have no clinical significance. Okay? If contaminant bacteria are seen, of course, they do not have a clinical significance. Again, true infection should be accompanied by a WBC. True infection should be accompanied by a WBC. And okay, presence of bacteria should be confirmed with a positive urine culture. Still, this one, urine culture insensitivity is the gold standard. Still. Anyway, okay, and so this one, you have a lot of I mean, bacilli. You have a lot of rod-shaped bacteria and a lot of pus cells. You have a lot of pus cells and a lot of rod-shaped bacilli. So of course you have a bacteria, a rod-shaped bacteria here, Okay, you have a what you call this yeast cell. That is a yeast cell. This is a yeast. This is a yeast. This is a red cell. This is a red cell. Please note a red cell. And then you have a WBC here. You have a WBC, 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 WBC. You have a bacteria, a bacteria. Okay. And please note that true bacterial infection, okay, true bacterial infection is accompanied by a pus cell. Parasites in the urine. Your parasites and parasitic ova may be seen in urine sediments as a result of fecal or vaginal contamination. And your Trichomonas vaginalis, this is the most frequent parasite encountered in the urine and is associated with ping pong disease. It is a flagellate. Your Trichomonas vaginalis is a flagellate, a pear-shaped flagellate. And yes, it has a jerky or rapid darting movement, a jerky or rapid darting movement. And yes, in case of extended or yes, unpreserved urine sample, it may disintegrate. The flagella may disintegrate. And the manner of reporting, semi-quantitative per high power field. Semi-quantitative per high power field. Anyway, your Trichomonas vaginalis may be present in the urine as a result of vaginal contamination or urethral or bladder infection. Again, Trichomonas vaginalis may be present in the urine as a result of vaginal contamination or infection in the urethra or in the urinary bladder. And yes, please note that the motility of the rapid jerky or rapid darting movement of Trichomonas vaginalis is helpful in making an appropriate identification. Because accordingly, your Trichomonas vaginalis, when not moving, it is more difficult to identify and it may resemble a WBC or a transitional epithelial cell or a renal tubular epithelial cell. Accordingly, please note again that it may be present as a result of vaginal contamination. It's a vaginal contamination. Because, of course, uh, the what they call this, the vagina, the orifice of the vagina and the orifice of the female urethra are different. Okay, that is why it can be a result of vaginal contamination and can be a true infection if it came from the urethra or it came from the bladder. It can indicate a true infection if it came from the urethra or it came from the bladder. And please note that your Trichomonas vaginalis is what they call this a sexually transmitted pathogen associated primarily with vaginal inflammation. And please note that infection of the male urethra and prostate is symptomatic. Okay, for this one, males are often asymptomatic carriers. Often males are asymptomatic carriers. And then you have your cystosoma hematobium. Your cystosoma hematobium, this is a typical ova that are shed directly into the urine, which is accompanied by erythrocytes from the urinary bladder. It is accompanied by erythrocytes from the urinary bladder because your hematobium, cystosoma hematobium, can lacerate. It lacerates the bladder. It lacerates the bladder, and laceration will cause bleeding, thereby causing a blood in the urine. Okay, please note that your cystosoma hematobium is a blood fluke with a terminal spine and causes hematuria because again, it lacerates the bladder. And please note that your cystosoma hematobium is associated with bladder cancer. Okay, it is associated with bladder cancer. Please note that the eggs of your cystosoma hematobium are often contained in the last few drops of urine expelled from the bladder. Okay, again, the eggs of your cystosoma hematobium are often contained in the last few drops of urine expelled from the bladder. And yes, the sample required for diagnosis is a 24-hour unpreserved urine. 24-hour urine accordingly. 24-hour urine. And then you have your amoeba. Please note that your amoebas, they are rarely seen in the urine. Amoebas may reach the bladder from the lymphatics or from fecal contamination of the urethra. Okay, again, they may reach the bladder. Your amoeba may reach the bladder from the lymphatics or from the fecal contamination of the urethra. Okay, and yes, your Entamoeba histolytica is usually accompanied by erythrocytes and leukocytes, or Entamoeba histolytica in the urine is accompanied by red blood cells and leukocytes accordingly. Okay, of course, okay, this one is a cystosoma hematobium. It has a terminal spine, and yes, this one is for your T-Vag Trichomonas vaginalis. Your Enterobius vermicularis ova. This is a parasite. Okay, this is the ova. It resembles a D shape. Okay, and this is the most common fecal contaminant. Most common fecal contaminant. Anyway, you have your yeast cells. Your yeast cells, they are reported as semi-quantitative per high power field. You report them as none, rare, few, many, moderate, as such, per high power field. And yes, okay, your yeast cells can appear in the urine as small, refractile oval structures that may or may not contain a bud. Again, the yeast cells appear in the urine as small, refractile oval structures that may or may not contain a bud. And your yeast, most commonly your Candida species, may be causative agents in UTIs, especially in diabetes mellitus patients. Okay, again, your yeast, okay, most commonly again your Candida, they may be causative agents in UTI in cases of diabetes mellitus patients. But okay, yeasts are also common contaminants from the skin, from the female genital tract, and from the environment, from the air, of course. Okay, and yes, true yeast infection should be accompanied by WBCs. Should be accompanied by WBCs. If no WBC is seen, then that is a contaminant also. Okay, that is a contaminant. Same with bacteria without what they call this past cells. Okay, please note that in severe forms, in severe infections with yeast, okay, the yeast may appear as branched and with mycelial forms. Accordingly, your yeast can be confused with erythrocytes. Okay, but then presence of budding will help to identify them as yeast. Okay, the pseudohyphae of your candida are occasionally found accordingly. Okay, and so again, most common, you have your Candida albicans that is seen in diabetes mellitus patients, patients with vaginal moniliasis, and immunocompromised patients. Then you have your spermatozoa. Your spermatozoa, a positive protein reagent strip, is seen in increased amount of sperm cells. Okay, and yes, seen after sexual intercourse or after masturbation. And please note that your urine is toxic to your sperm. That is why rare motility is observed in your in the urine. Rare motility of spermatozoa is observed in the urine sediment. Reporting for your spermatozoa, you follow your laboratory protocol. But most of laboratories they do not report spermatozoa. Okay, they do not report spermatozoa. Okay, I mean, it depends on the protocol of the laboratory if they need to report it or not. Okay, you have here an illustration of a spermatozoa. Okay, you have a spermatozoa. Of course, you have the head and the tail. You have the head and the tail. Okay, another spermatozoa, you have the head and the tail for such. Okay, and then you have your mucus threads. Your mucus threads, they are long, thin, wavy threads of ribbon-like structures. Okay, and the major constituent of your mucus threads are Tam horsefall protein. They are Tam horsefall protein, and it is more frequently seen in female urine samples. Okay, and yes, they originate from the glands and epithelial cells in the genitourinary tract and RTE cells accordingly. And as for clinical significance, none accordingly. No clinical significance. Please note that the image presented here, this one, you have a lot of mucus threads here. These are mucus threads. While the image here, this one, this is not a mucus thread. This is a what we call this a clothing fiber. This is a clothing fiber. Accordingly, this is a clothing fiber. While in this area, you have a lot of mucus threads present. Mucus threads are present here. Okay. Also here, okay, and so in a polarized microscopy, okay, your mucus threads are better seen in a polarized microscopy. Of course, so if you use bright field microscope, if you use bright field microscope, you examine under subdued light. Okay, you examine under subdued light, meaning you decrease the light intensity. Same in examining your epithelial cells, you decrease the light intensity. Okay, you decrease the light intensity. Of course, you have epithelial cells here. You have a lot of mucus threads also here. You have a lot of mucus threads also in this one. You have mucus threads, mucus threads, mucus threads. Of course, you have mucus threads here. Mucus threads, mucus threads, threads, threads. Okay, this one is not a mucus thread. Okay. Again, okay, in mucus threads, you examine under subdued light. Thank you so much. This has been Gael, reminding you to live fully, love deeply, love often, keep learning, and never forget to enjoy the ride. And as you move forward, may you always choose curiosity over fear, kindness over convenience, and growth over comfort. And yes, you celebrate your small victories, you honor your quiet moments, and trust that every step, no matter how uncertain, shapes the story you are meant to tell. The world is wide, your time is precious, and your journey is uniquely yours. So go make it extraordinary. Thank you. Thank you so much, and see you around.